What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, and today I'm going to be interviewing Kurt, who is the owner of HouseScan Inspections here in Northeastern Florida. And if I remember correctly, you guys are the #1 company here in the area now?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
We are the largest and the highest rated home inspection company in Northeast Florida.
And that was pretty quick, right? You guys haven't been around for that long, have you?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a bit of a meteoric rise. We've been in business for between 5 and 6 years right now, which most of our competitors have been in business much longer.
For sure.
So to get to that #1 spot that quickly, I would say is, definitely a feat for us.
Pretty admirable. Yeah. And you guys do it, they have a social media account that is rocking, especially compared to any other inspection company out there. Mm-hmm. What's a good way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, I would say our Instagram account is we're super active on there. Mm-hmm. So it's at HouseScanFL. And we're always posting, crazy findings and content that we see in houses all day, every day.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, Kurt. How long have you lived here in our area?
So I've been here in Jacksonville for about 10 years-ish. Mm-hmm. I'm from Pennsylvania. I have a background in engineering and operations. Moved down here for a job. I worked at Maxwell House as my first career. Mm-hmm. And then the story goes is I've had a few home inspections. We were out to dinner one night. Everybody, at dinner was all kind of talking about home inspections and real estate, and noticed that there was lots of complaints. Mm-hmm. And so there was kind of that light bulb moment there where maybe there's some opportunity with home inspections. And like 2 days later, started the company and just been running 100 miles per hour towards, growing this thing ever since.
So you went from working at Maxwell House, working in engineering essentially, mm-hmm. right? And then you went into you dove right into opening up your own inspection company. Did you have any experience before that, or just?
So I switched about halfway through my engineering career. I switched into operations, mm-hmm. and that was really kind of like managing people, managing processes, making things better. That was really kind of what opened up my eyes to like basically I was running my own little miniature business within a massive business, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like what gave me my experience. And that was like a perfect kind of into really starting any business. And I knew that was ultimately what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And home inspections was great. I owned a couple rental properties. My wife, her family, they're all involved in real estate in some capacity. Mm-hmm. And so it all kind of just made perfect sense. Just started going full speed towards home inspections.
Yeah. And it shows with the meteoric growth of your company here in the past couple of years, where no one knew who you were 5 years ago, and now you're the #1 thing in town. So that's pretty amazing, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So if you were to give your pitch, right, on HouseScan versus any other inspection company, what's the differentiator for you guys here at HouseScan?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot. I get that question a lot, and mm-hmm. there's nothing that we do that's like revolutionarily different than any other home inspector. Mm-hmm. It's more or less the same product, but I would say that what we do, we probably do things slightly better mm-hmm. in like 20 or 30 different areas.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you look at like all these different aspects of the home inspection, what's provided, speed, accuracy, thoroughness, communication skills, website, just how things are portrayed and how they look. When you add all those things up, it then becomes like a significantly better experience for most customers.
Yeah, so. And just being someone who's used HouseScan in the past, my buyers have, right?
Sure.
People I've recommended mm-hmm. You to. Seems that the process for them setting things up, to getting the report, all of that seems streamlined, right? Whereas you can't say that with every inspection company.
Sure. Yeah, that was a big thing. I mean, back from that initial conversation, that dinner that we had where there was a bunch of complaints going around about home inspections that folks had in the past, there was a list of 20 pain points that I had, starting the business. One of them was, difficulty scheduling, pricing not being transparent, mm-hmm. Having to go back weeks later right before closing to get additional insurance reports. All those things were pain points. And from day one, just started tackling those and just making things easier and seamless. And it also kind of goes back to like that engineering brain that I have, just making things better, faster, stronger, quicker, and just making the best process possible. And I'm a firm believer that the more value you add, the more you're going to get in return, and the bigger your business can ultimately grow.
100%. So, yeah. And you mentioned like some of the complaints that you're addressing, like in terms of home inspections, what are the main complaints that you're hearing, some of the pain points?
Yeah. I mean, the one that we hear the most is, my inspector missed, X, Y, and Z, right? That's the one that we hear the most. And, we're not perfect by any means, but I know that we have a very good track record. We keep, tabs on callbacks and when people have complaints and issues, and we really take those and use them as an opportunity to get better. Mm-hmm. Luckily, it's only about 1 in every 200 home inspections. When we're refunding our fee or, taking care of an issue that might have been overlooked, things like that.
And you guys are going to be doing, you said 1 of 200, and you guys are going to be doing 300 inspections this month, something like that?
Yeah, this is set to be our biggest month. We're hoping to surpass that 300 home inspection mark, which I don't think that any home inspection company in Northeast Florida has ever come close to that.
Yeah.
So we're pretty proud about that. But not necessarily just, that number, but like, it's the quality and like the value that we're bringing to the customer is really what we focus on every single day.
Yeah,
so
for sure. And that's the most important part, right? For me as a realtor, I just want to make sure that my people are taken care of, right?
For sure.
And most of the time that's going to be the buyer, right? Now sellers will sometimes do a pre-home inspection before it goes on the market, but most of the time it's for the buyer. Just want to make sure they're taken care of. It's easy, it's transparent, and you get the report quickly, right? Because all of this is on a timeline, whereas in a lot of other states, this necessarily isn't on a timeline. Some states you do the inspections outside of contract, right? So it just helps leaps and bounds to have an efficient process and someone that you can kind of trust and just, hey, use these guys. They're going to take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And that's great. Like for you, I would say not all realtors are equal, right? So some realtors are going to push like the cheapest home inspection guy that's not going to find everything in the house.
Yeah.
And that might be great short term to like get the deal closed.
Yeah.
But long term, those clients are probably going to be upset with that recommendation.
Yeah.
And then it ultimately hurts that realtor's business. So it's a very short-term thing. Most of the agents that we work with have been in the business for a while. They understand the value that we're providing, and that typically, the more thorough, the better the inspection. And, that helps the real estate agent's business as well.
For sure. And you brought that up. It's a common misconception like that you guys work for us, right? And like obviously we do have relationships with you guys, but at the end of the day, you work for the person who's paying you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
So it's your job to do your due diligence on their behalf, not because like, oh, well, this will help the realtor close another deal and maybe they'll refer me another piece of business, right?
Yep.
Like, because at the end of the day, if we're not doing what's right, it's going to come back and bite us in the ass, right?
Yeah. When we lose referrals from agents, it's when we screw something up in the sense that, we missed something or the client is upset for some reason. So if we keep the client happy, then usually, we're going to continue to get referrals from agents.
Yeah. If the client moves into the house and they're like, oh, they missed this and missed that, and more than likely they're not going to be like, yeah, scan,
Yep. Which again, luckily for us, is rare. But again, we're human. There's 100 or 1,000 things to check in a house. And so it's easy, for something to slip through the cracks, or something that was under a rug or behind, a wall or something, where at least perception, typically is reality. And so, if somebody thinks that the home inspector should have caught something, then, usually, I'm not going to say like we should, because there's limitations with home inspections, obviously. But, we want our clients happy at the end of the day.
Yeah. So. I recently just had a complaint on an inspection. It wasn't from your company. It was from a different company.
Okay.
And the buyer had pulled off the baseboard. And when he pulled off the baseboard, he found mold behind the baseboard. And it's like, well, what do you want the guy to do?
Right,
you want the inspector to go in there, rip all the baseboard off, tear the drywall off, see what's going on in between the walls and fix it. Like that's not how it works. And I think that's a very common misconception.
Sure. We hear all the time that like home inspectors, they're going to catch every single thing in the house. They can see behind walls, find things underground. It's just not the case, right? For us, it's It's basically how I explain it to most people is if we can get our eyes and our hands on it, then it's typically covered during the home inspection. So it's a visual inspection, but it is not comprehensive in the sense that we're going to find every single issue in that house. It's designed to give somebody a general understanding of what they're getting themselves into, and make sure that, you know, they are making a good decision with the purchase. But everybody's tolerance is different. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it is not a comprehensive, you know, finding every single little issue inside the house.
Yeah.
So.
The reports, or you guys would be there for days if that was the case.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And,
Or like deconstructing the entire house down to the studs.
Yeah.
And then reconstructing it. And that's just not feasible. It's not realistic, right?
the inspection cost would be ridiculous, right? It'd be
For
like
sure. Yep.
$20,000
Right.
to get your inspection done, right?
Now, to your example, you know, mold behind a baseboard, a lot of times there are visual cues that we can pick up on, like either finding moisture, or, you know, staining that might, you know, make us recommend, hey, you know, you might have a problem in this area. But yeah, if, you know, sellers sometimes are good at, I don't want to say hiding things, but making their house, you know, ready to sell. And so you might get new paint, you know, new caulking, whatever, that might cover up some of those things. So, I mean, it's a realistic, there's risk in buying real estate, and the home inspection is designed to reduce that risk, but it's never going to reduce that risk 100%. So things, you know, behind walls or underground or, you know, things that are hidden, they're just not part of the home inspection.
Things we just can't see, or, you know, you guys aren't superheroes looking through the walls
Exactly.
and stuff. You know, you have your technology, you can do the scans and everything, but there's only so much that can be done.
Yep. So what you're talking about is the infrared scan, and that is something that we do on every single inspection. It's infrared technology, so basically it shows us a heat map of the house. So we scan through all the interior rooms. What it finds is, so it's not X-ray vision, you know, contrary to popular belief, but it helps us find like potential hidden issues. So moisture intrusion, roof leaks, plumbing leaks, anything with moisture that hasn't shown up as staining yet, because there's a period of time where something could be wet, but it hasn't necessarily caused damage yet. So it helps to find those issues, and then missing insulation behind walls, overloaded circuits, some other electrical things. So it's a great little added value for every inspection that we do.
For sure. And that's based off of like heat, right? So if you have a water leak coming in, it's a slow drip, right? Just dripping every so often. And maybe it's not making that stain on your ceiling.
Sure.
Maybe drying slightly, who knows? But it still shows that it's slightly cooler than the rest of the area. Or maybe it's hotter because there's no insulation, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Beautiful. Would you outline kind of your guys' process for when you go into a home? You know, you're doing a standard home inspection, right? What's your process from A to Z for your inspectors to go in there and get you that general profile of the house?
Yeah, so the first thing we do is just get a feel for the house. So we're going to open up the front door, come inside, turn all the lights on, turn the air conditioning on, get some appliances running, just do a general feel, get the layout of the house. Then we're going to really start our inspection, which we always start on the roof. So we'll start up top on the outside, do a thorough inspection of the roof. We're taking a bunch of videos, pictures, collecting information during that inspection. Then we're going to do the exterior, mainly thinking about water and how it, you know, hits the house and flows away from the house. Looking for signs of, you know, wood rot, moisture intrusion, you know, 1,000 other things, but those are, you know, probably top of the list. Then we'll typically head into the garage. We'll check all the major systems. So a lot of times there will be an electric panel in there, water heater, air conditioning system. We'll check those items, inspect them, again, collect information on them, age, general condition, any deficiencies. Then we'll head into the house, usually hit a laundry room after that, run the appliances, run them through a basic cycle. And then kitchen, and then really just every room one by one after that. And so after that, you know, we're checking every window, every door, every outlet that we can get to in each room. So again, like if there's a big dresser in the way of an outlet, then unfortunately we're not going to be able to check it. Yeah. Because you know it'd be unreasonable to move every piece of furniture. There's liability involved.
Yeah.
So there's no real inspectors that move, you know, large pieces of furniture if they're in the way of something like that.
No, it makes sense. It makes like, what are you going to keep furniture sliders on you at all times? Because it's just going to be you half the time there. Exactly. You know, ask, hey buyer, you mind helping me move this for you real quick? You know.
Yeah. And then after that, so we're doing the attic space, we'll do the crawl space if the house is off grade, and then we do our infrared scan last after we ran all the plumbing to see if there's any leaks. So
gotcha. And you talked about, hey, you're going to go and check the AC. You want to make sure the hot water heater's running, all that and also the appliances. I think it's important to note that you're not a specialist when it comes down to the AC. You're not taking the AC apart, right? You're doing a general differential of heating and cooling and seeing that it is heating and it is cooling, correct?
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. General function and, age, and then anything that's obvious visual, just looking at it. You might have what's called a biflow dryer, which removes contaminants inside the refrigerant line. If that's all rusted and corroded, maybe it's time to replace that thing. Right. That's it. Typically a couple $100s to do that, but it could save somebody, a much bigger repair sometime down the line.
And that's something that you also do as recommendations too. Like, hey, this AC is 15 years old. It's still heating. It's still cooling. Great. But you got to be aware it's probably on its last legs here.
Yeah. Yeah. So with us, it's really just trying to give that buyer a good understanding of the house that they're purchasing, understanding, any obvious deficiencies, big things that aren't working today, but also, like, to your point, age with the major systems is very important, right? If you have a 15-year-old water heater that is working fine today, it's not rusted out, it's not leaking. But 15 years is usually about, when people start to need to replace that water heater. So we put a comment in the report basically stating that it's aging. You might want to start budgeting for a new water heater. And so
give them that recommendation, hey, it's on its last legs here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you guys offer a variety of inspections, right? What are the main ones that you would recommend for just your everyday buyer in your standard home here in the area?
Yeah, so what we do, our bread and butter is the full home inspection, which is what any home inspector is going to be offering. And then also there's 2 insurance reports for the state of Florida. So these are specific to Florida. One is called a wind mitigation report. The other is called a 4-point report. We bundle them all together in one, bundled package, and that is what we offer as our house scan home inspection. That's going to be what, 95% of buyers are going to need and want. For us, including those 2 additional reports that most people need, it just makes the process seamless. People don't need to really totally understand what they are and why they're needed. We give them to them, and they don't have to spend any extra money. Don't have to worry about what they're purchasing, and so it just makes the process easy. So it's the full home inspection, the wind mitigation inspection, the 4-point report, and then the infrared scan that I mentioned.
Gotcha.
So those 4 services are bundled together. Now there's 1,000 other specialty inspections that somebody can get. If you have solar panels on your roof, you can get a specialist to come look at your solar panels. If you have a septic system, you can have a septic company come out and inspect your septic system. So on and so forth for every single specialty item that might be in a house. Generators, if you have a pool, there's termite inspections. So,
and that goes along with like the AC too, right? If you want to get the AC checked out, you got to get someone that's actually like an expert specifically with ACs. Same thing with pools, right?
Yep.
You just want just someone who's a general home inspector, take a look at the pool and be like, oh, it looks good to me. That's not what you want.
Yeah, fully agreed. Especially like air conditioning systems. Again, home inspectors are generalists. So we're going to check for basic function, age, general condition. But what we're not doing is opening up, the cabinet, looking at all the wiring inside. We're not pulling refrigerant pressures. So that's something that you could have done with an HVAC checkup. And that's something I would recommend if your air conditioning system is, 15 or 20 years old and kind of in this second half or getting near, the end of its life. And that's something that we recommend if we see that. So.
Gotcha. And the one thing that's great that you guys include the 4-point and the wind mit is buyers really, they're like, when you say that to them, you're speaking a different language. They don't know what a 4-point,
especially out of state buyers.
100%. Yeah.
Because it's
wind mit. What's that? Yeah. Right. So it makes a lot of sense to include it, but then also it's like, you could have a realtor who's green who doesn't know to tell like, hey, you need to get these inspections. You need to have this for insurance, right? and then they're going to have you come back out again and make sure you get all these things, right? So it streamlines the process once again, right?
Yep.
Beautiful.
For sure.
So we talked about some of the major things that we do on inspections. What are some of the major red flags that you see when going through homes that definitely you want to bring attention to the buyer?
Mm-hmm. For us, so I'll say this, a lot of home inspectors really focus on safety. Mm-hmm. We certainly do. We care about safety. We want to make sure that somebody, when they move into their house, they're safe. But we focus way more on costs. So like for us, we want to make sure that when somebody moves in, they don't have to pull out their wallet and spend thousands of dollars on something that, wasn't mentioned or wasn't caught during the inspection. Mm-hmm. So that's really where we focus our time and our energy, and really how we try to push the buyer's eyes towards that in the report. So we try to prioritize, when somebody's gonna have to spend money. For example, so to your question, so the big red flags, I'd say if we have to make major repairs or replacements in any of the 4 major systems, so roofing, plumbing, electrical, or air conditioning, mm-hmm. those can be big ticket items. That's really where, we want somebody to be aware of that. And, we might make something red in the report to really push their eyes towards that.
Yeah.
The other one might be major foundation issues. Those can be very expensive to repair. So that's what I would say. It's just anything that can be a big expense is really where we try to keep people aware of.
For sure. And then just in the realtor part of my job here, right? Once we get the inspection, that gives us negotiating room, right? We're under inspection, and more than likely we didn't know about these issues prior to getting into contract, right? So then at that point, it's a negotiation point. Hey, you mm-hmm. got X, and Y wrong, and they're going to cost $20,000,
sure.
right? What are we going to do about this?
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully they come down 20,000, but maybe sometimes the meet in the middle type of situation.
Yeah. And usually a home inspection is $500, give or take. Mm-hmm. And usually it's worth its weight in gold, in the sense that you can usually use it to negotiate, ask for repairs, get concessions off the price.
Yep.
And so we have a lot of customers that use it strictly for that. And it's, it's a great tactic for negotiating.
Yeah. It's a third party aside from me as the realtor, mm-hmm. them as the buyer, trying to get more money out of this. Well,
exactly.
Essentially using that to get more money out of the situation that benefits the buyer, right?
For sure.
So I think it's great. So what happens when, you guys are doing a thorough job, right? What happens if something major pops up? They close on the home. They did their inspections. They negotiated everything they could. They go to closing, and then they're in the house a month, and they find something that wasn't brought up in the inspection report.
Yeah, certainly happens. I mean, in this line of work, there's lots of liability. I would say 9 times out of 10, you might laugh at this, but usually somebody didn't read the report, right?
Yeah.
So that's usually what it is, and then we have to go back and say, really sorry that that's happened. We hate anybody to have any issues, but mm-hmm. On page 6, we talked about that water heater that was leaking, mm-hmm. Unfortunately this one's going to be on you. So that's usually how it is. But like I said before, I mean, we are human, right? There's 100 or thousands of things to check in a house. There's lots of moving parts. There's people there. We can get distracted. Mm-hmm. And so, once in a while we will miss something. And usually, we'll do our own little internal investigation. We'll talk to our inspector. We have a quality guy that, will look into anything like that. And if we feel like, it was on us, then we'll make it right. We'll make it right for the client, which, anytime it's even close, we're either going to refund them the cost of the inspection, mm-hmm. or just take care of whatever the repair is.
Yeah.
But it's rare. I'd say, 1 in every 200 inspections or so, mm-hmm. we get a complaint, and usually, we make them whole, we make them right pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So.
And you brought up how we're human and there could be distractions.
Mm-hmm.
This is a story that I saw. Maybe you saw it here. It was here in Florida.
Okay.
A home inspector went to an attic space, and he found a live alligator in the attic space. Did you see that?
I just saw that. Yeah. A couple weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean,
that is wild.
Might distract you a little bit,
For sure.
You're probably not going to check the attic,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another thing is, not to change topic, but limitations are part of the home inspection, mm-hmm. right? Like I said before, there's There's furniture in houses, so we can't check behind or under furniture. We can't check behind walls or under the ground. So sometimes it's just like expectations, right? A buyer, expects something to be checked and caught, when in reality, like it's impossible for an inspector to catch that.
Yeah.
So a lot of times that's what it is. And it's just like, re-educating somebody on the limitations of a home inspection, which, it's part of it. But,
I mean, a lot of times too, a lot of the utilities are in the garage, right? And when you are putting your home on the market, you're tidying up, you're clearing up all the clutter and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Where does that stuff go?
Right.
Goes right into the garage. I've been in several home inspections where it's like, I can't even get to this hot water heater over here or like whatever, because there's, shelves and boxes and all that kind of stuff. Right. So it's like, that's actually that's a problem though, correct? Because the seller needs to have access for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Technically. According to our contracts.
And we send an email to the listing agent asking them, hey, make sure we have access to the attic space, to the electric panel, to the water heater, and the air conditioning system. And I would say most times it's rare that we don't have access to these things. And normally we can slide a box out of the way to get access or whatever it might be. But sometimes we have a 1957 Chevy Corvette, sitting right under the attic access, and we're not going to put our ladder up over that thing and risk it. So, we've had several examples where we have tried to go the extra mile and it has backfired on us, and we end up pulling out our wallet to pay for something that got damaged or whatever. So we try to use our best judgment to avoid these limitations, but sometimes we just can't get around it. So,
I hear you. So we've talked a lot about just your general home inspections with resales, right? So, a home that's 10 years old, 5 years old, 20 years old, and going in there, having an inspector check everything out. Now, we have a lot of new construction in our area. I mean, I'd say probably like 80% of our inventory is probably built within like the last 10 to 20 years, right? So a lot of new construction homes comparatively to you're from Pittsburgh, right?
Yep.
Homes there from like the 1900s, some of them, they're just they have a lot older of a housing inventory than we do. So when it comes down to new construction with you guys, a lot of buyers are like, why would I do that? It's a brand new house, right? But there's definitely some value there having a inspector go through the new construction, because they're going to be representing you and your interests, right?
For sure. Massive misconception is that new construction houses are like a car coming off the showroom floor, right? Coming off the assembly line, that's like perfect. Just not the case, right? We have superintendents that are managing 50 builds all at once, right? They're not able to manage anything at that scale. We've got labor shortages of skilled labor. People doing finishes in houses. Sometimes I think some of these builders are just hiring like anybody off the street to do tile work and whatever. So when we're inspecting new houses, we see anything and everything under the sun. I mean, just major issues, roof leaks, air conditioning systems that aren't working, plumbing leaks, all kinds of just crazy, wild stuff. So definitely, I would recommend most folks buying new construction you have four options really. So you can decide not to get a home inspection. That's always an option. Spend zero, take on the risk of whatever's going on in the house, or handle it yourself, right? You can. Most new builds come with that 1-year warranty. So you can always get a licensed home inspector to come out right before that 1-year warranty expires. They'll put together a report, take that back to the builder, and 9 times out of 10, they're gonna resolve most items in that report.
I like that a lot. That's something I didn't even think of, because pretty much everyone has that. But so keep going.
Yeah. So that's like really good bang for the buck. Sometimes people, they live in the house for 10, 11 months, then they get this inspection. They kind of know where they're having some problems, or they might see a crack in the wall and have the inspector take a look at it. Your other option is before closing. You can do the same inspection. That is a good idea where the builder doesn't necessarily have their last payment yet. And so they might be more likely to be proactive and get those repairs done quickly. So that's a really good idea. And then the last one is a little bit different. We don't actually do these, but they're phase inspections. So there's some companies in town that will come out once the concrete is poured, get an inspection at that point. Once the framing goes up, you can get an inspection at that point. Once, drywall goes up and finishes are going in, then you can get another inspection. So you can get each phase of the construction process inspected.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're going to have somebody coming out 4 or 5 times. And so you're going to spend a little bit more doing that.
Yeah.
So,
time and travel. And
a bunch of different options.
Yeah.
It all depends on the buyer's tolerance, risk, like the risk appetite. So
yeah, well, and pretty much with any inspection, if a buyer asks me like, "Oh, what do you think? Should I get it?" And it's like, "Well, what's your peace of mind worth?" Like if you don't get this inspection and something, are you going to be worrying about it? Or if you get the inspection and then you find out, okay, this is what it is, then it's going to help you at least sleep a little better at night.
For sure. Yeah.
The one thing you mentioned about doing the, typically with most builders, you're going to get that 1 year, 2 year warranty of like material defect, right? Anything happens when you're living in the first year, they're going to come back out and take care of it. And a lot of the builders will tell the buyer, and I've heard them say it verbatim, like, hey, you're going to find stuff, you're going to find stuff in this house. We're not perfect either, right?
For sure.
And typically what we like to do is wait for you guys, give us 90 days, just live in the house for 90 days, write down your entire list of everything, right, that you find, and then give it to the warranty department or the super on site, right? It almost makes sense to just have, because once again, they're not inspectors, right? Most of these buyers, they're not people that are really looking at these major key issues that could cost them a lot of money in depth. They're having the knowledge to do so.
Sure.
So even having an inspector come out, that's genius. Have an inspector come out, detail everything, and then give it back to the builder with 10 times the amount of stuff that you would have found probably.
For sure. And it's like a very easy to read report. It's organized well. It has pictures, videos, so it's nice and easy for the builder to use, and then go back and make those repairs. The other thing that I'll say is that as home inspectors, we're licensed. We went through, training. At least our team, we go through 6 months of training. So it's a long time, lots of houses that we're in, and we're in 2 or 3 houses every single day. So we're seeing this stuff all the time, and we know the difference between like a cosmetic issue versus like a major issue or something that needs to be looked into further. So whereas, the average homeowner, they might see like a little, small crack in a drywall, be super concerned about it. Oh, my house is falling over.
The foundation.
And we might be able to go in and take a look at it and say, okay, monitor it, but this isn't an area for concern. This is super normal settling, whatever. Just the experience is definitely some value for that homeowner.
For sure. Yeah, I like that a lot, and I will definitely be recommending that to any of my new construction buyers. That's
and we do a ton of them. Those 11-month warranty inspections.
Yeah.
Every week we're probably doing 8 to 10 of them. So
yeah, it's a fantastic idea. I love it. And it's full circle, really. So like you could help in the beginning before it goes, before it's finished, right? You get that final report before it closes, and then you could do it after too. So it's like, yeah, it's going to cost you money, right?
Sure.
But it's also that peace of mind. So I think that's a fantastic idea. I definitely will be using that.
Cool.
So Kurt, what's the hardest? I know you own obviously house scans, so you have a lot of jobs at this point. Being a business owner is not easy, but what's the hardest part of your job, but also just in general, the inspector's job when doing this process? Yeah.
As a business owner, I have, as our company has grown, I've outsourced, in the beginning when it was just me, I wore every single hat, right? Just like any business owner would do. But I've, hired really amazing, talented people to take on and like outsource each of these tasks of the business. And so, now everybody specializes and everybody's really good at their individual job. So I don't know. I tend to think my job has gotten easier over the years. I'm not doing as many inspections as I used to.
Yeah. Not going in some crawl spaces in 110 degree weather, attics or anything like that.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I would say, most of our inspectors they're going to do a 10 times better job than I would do at this point anyway. So, that's been amazing to see. But to your question, what's the most difficult part of the job? I would say that home inspectors in general, at least our team, I can really talk on them. They make it look super easy. And we hear so many times, like after the inspection, like, oh, like this is such an awesome job. It seems easy. I'm gonna think about getting my license, or I'm gonna think about becoming a home inspector, which for some people probably is fully capable, or they can do it. But it is a super difficult job.
Oh,
I mean, you have to be knowledgeable in so many different areas. Communication skills have to be on point. You have to be able to talk to and relate with people, deliver bad news. Sometimes, have to have really good people skills. You have to be physically, able to climb roofs, get under houses, walk through, 140-degree attic spaces. So there's a, physical side to the job. And then I'd say the most difficult part of the job is like mental.
Yeah.
So you have to be on your game for 3 hours straight when you're in that house checking everything. Again, can't really afford to miss anything. And yeah, just dealing with, people just like any line of work. But in this line of work, as you know, emotions run high.
Yeah.
The home inspection is sometimes a nerve-wracking part of the entire transaction. And so, our team has to be really good at dealing with people and being able to communicate things effectively and well, not be alarming, not sugarcoat anything, just give facts and let people make decisions on their own. So it is a multifaceted career to where you have to be good at a lot of different things. And it's just really hard. It's just not for everybody. So
no, I think about it and I mean, obviously you guys do pretty well for yourself, and inspections, they're not exactly cheap, right? It costs money to do these things, but I think about it and I'm like, oh my God, my anxiety would be through the roof if I had to be a home inspector, just because there are so many and I'm not that person. I'm not that, dotting the I's, crossing the T's, making sure everything is in line and perfect. Like you said, there's a process to everything.
Yep.
And you have to check all these certain things. And to me, I would just think oh, did I look at this? For me, that in real estate, it's did I let the cat out? Did I lock the back door?
We still have to worry about all those
for
the
sure.
Same things. So.
Yeah, and that's oh my God, if I lost a cat, I'm spending the whole day, the rest of my life, I'm gonna be searching for that cat, until I find it, because that's just the type of person I am. But that it gives me, having you guys there is just so much a relief for me, because then it's just something I don't have to worry about. It's not me telling, and that's also something if your realtor's telling you, hey, X, X, and Y is wrong with the house, you should probably fire that guy, because he's not an inspector. That's not his job. His job is to facilitate the transaction, help you out through that process, not to inspect the house. So I know you've probably, you probably have a lot more, what's the word? I'm gratification for your work than complaints. But what's some of the major complaints that you hear, maybe from realtors, but also from buyers when it comes down to the home inspection process?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what we hear a lot is just if we're working with a new agent for the first time and we get that first referral from them, we hear all the time, yeah, my old inspector, just, it could be really anything. But there's, we just hear these complaints all the time. And either, my old inspector missed this, or we had 3 straight inspections where he missed something, which it's super, it's doable. If somebody doesn't have a rock solid process, again, most buyers are going to expect that inspector not to miss anything. So it's that's probably what we hear the most. Just people starting to use us because their last inspector, just kept making mistake after mistake.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say that I hear a lot, most agents are pretty knowledgeable on this stuff, especially experienced agents that have been doing it for a minute. They've read dozens or hundreds of inspection reports. They kind of know, what are the big things in a house? What should somebody be worried about? But a lot of novice or newer inspectors might come through and make, a huge deal about nothing, and vice versa, maybe not catch something that's a huge deal, a huge expense.
Yeah.
So, really in our line of work, experience, it does matter. The longer you're doing it, the better you get at it. But I'd say the other complaint that we hear a lot is just another inspector might be super alarmist and, just kill a deal, for something that's either super common or that's in every single house, or that's just not a big deal. So there's one example that I always give, and it always kind of makes me laugh, but there's a TPR valve, which is a temperature pressure relief valve, comes off of a water heater, and code, all the building codes, everything basically says that this thing needs to be piped either outside or down to the floor, like close to the floor. And if it's not, if the water heater had an issue and it like essentially like overheated, it could become like a missile and a bomb, right? That might happen once or twice or a few times a year, like across the entire United States. It's just like a super, super rare thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know, people like, I just hear all kinds of different stories about other inspectors that like make huge deals about like a TPR valve that's not piped down to the floor. And it's like, dude, throw a, $2 piece of pipe on there and like call it a day. Like it's not a huge deal, but they'll make it a big screaming like safety issue. And it's like, yes, technically like anything could be considered a safety issue, but it's literally like $2 to fix it and like 30 seconds to throw a pipe on there, right?
It's not a problem. It's really not it could. I guess that's also the thing is with inspectors, and sometimes even with new construction, I've had it where the builder does a great job, right? And then you have to prove your worth in some way. Like, hey, they paid for this inspection, so like, hey, this little outlet's off. It's not exactly level, right? So they almost have to prove their worth in that aspect. Like, hey, this thing could blow any second now. This hot water heater,
right.
And like you said, it's not your job to be an alarmist. It's your job to bring information so people can make an educated decision.
Exactly. Yeah. In that example, like that's not us. I don't think that's us anyways. Where we're making big deals about something that's easy or simple to fix.
Yeah.
So and that like. That whole like conversation, it's all just around perspective, right? And again, we're in these houses all day, every day. Most homeowners aren't anywhere near as knowledgeable on these systems.
For sure.
And so we just want to try to provide perspective so that they know what's important, what to deal with. And so that's why, we categorize our report into minor, moderate, major items. And it really helps people like figure out what's important for them.
For sure. Yeah.
Which is also like, I also want to mention like that's subjective. And so something that might be minor to one person might be major to another person and vice versa.
100%. Because they had one past experience that totally ruined it for them for whatever reason that is.
For sure. Yeah. We hear that all the time. But generally speaking, people care about money. And if there's going to be a major expense, they want to know about that. That's probably what they're going to care about the most.
For sure. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about, because you guys are in homes all the time. What are just some general tips that you could give for your standard homeowner? One, I guess, just living in your house and just having those basic maintenance things that you should look up on. Like, hey, run some vinegar through the AC drain pipe there and make sure that's cleared out. Like, that's one that I always hear. But are there any others similar to that like standard homeowners should do? Yeah.
I mean, there's all kinds of home maintenance, right? I would say that, like, if I'm just going to think of a few that I think matter more, that are more important, I would say gutters. So cleaning out your gutters a couple times a year is massively important. If you don't, they get filled up with leaves and debris.
Just getting gutters in the first place, right?
That's true. Yeah, I should have said that first. Gutters in the first place is like, it's a great idea. It's going to collect that water and get it away from the house. Water is like the number one enemy in houses. So if water gets into your house, it can cause damage. It can cause wood rot, moisture intrusion. It can even cause foundation issues, which most people don't think about because those happen over time, over a longer period of time. But so gutters and maintaining your gutters like helps to collect that rainwater, get it away from the house and the foundation, and avoid all those issues. So like that's a really good one. That's something that everybody should do. And then on top of that, I would say like air conditioning systems, maintaining them is a really good idea. Replacing that filter every month or two, really good idea. Like you just mentioned, putting some vinegar down your condensate line, really good idea. Those things will grow algae and get built up in them. And if you don't clean them every once in a while, every 6 months or so, then they will back up and you'll actually, potentially flood out your house, which I've heard many horror stories over the years.
My AC is on the second floor. I got to do that. So.
Yeah. If it's on the second floor or the attic space, like without a doubt, you got to be cleaning that thing out for sure.
Okay.
Every 6 months. I would just leave a cup, some vinegar there, set an alarm or a reminder in your phone.
Yeah.
It's the best thing
Every
you can
2
do.
or 3 filter changes, get that done.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
What else? So those are two of the bigger ones. Yeah, there's all kinds of home maintenance things.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I was just curious, just because I know there's 100 things you could do, right? And there's always going to be maintenance to do on the house, and that's a lot of people aren't the experts in that. But it's like, what's the basic, easy things they can do, and then you got to hire out everything else. I think, because just like you hire an inspector, you're not an expert on a house. You're not an expert on fixing a house either. Right?
Sure.
So
yeah, I mean, we like to think that we're pretty darn knowledgeable in most areas, but correct, in most cases, we're not doing these repairs ourselves, and better to hire somebody that's specific in that area.
Yeah.
One other thing that came to mind, I think, is a really good idea is sometimes in Florida it can get hot in the summer. People don't go outside as much. What I would say is at least every few months, just taking a lap around your house, right, and just like looking at your house, making sure there's no openings where squirrels or raccoons or possums can get into your house.
Yeah.
Like that's a good idea. Just, like that's probably the best piece of advice that I gave. And then, you see things that you don't typically see, that you're not typically thinking about. We're all in our daily routine. But yeah, just like walking around your house, checking it out once every few months, like you might catch a leak that's in the very early stages, and you might avoid, a major expense and damage later down the line. So
yeah, or a rodent infestation or something like that. You don't want to clean. How much rodent poop in the attic will cause it for it to be a hazard area, right? You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and I just had rodents in my house, so it even happens to home inspectors.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we started hearing them in our walls, and finally, like, okay, we need to get this resolved, and found they were actually burrowing under the foundation, getting into the house.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
So fun stuff.
Are you on a slab here?
What's that?
Are you on a slab over here?
So it's a off-grade foundation.
Okay.
So it's an older house.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Okay, that'll happen then, right?
That will happen. Yep.
Yeah.
So
but one thing comes up too with a lot of new construction, and that we'll see just because it's Florida, right? And we talked about concrete just a second there, but comes up a lot for my buyers, like, hey, this concrete has a crack, and even with new construction, they'll see cracks in the foundation, cracks in the driveway. And pretty much every builder will say, like, it's Florida, regardless if it's right now or if it's 10 years from now, that thing's going to crack.
Sure. Yep.
Is that pretty much nothing you can do about it because just the weather here?
Yeah, we get asked that question every single day. I'm in the garage, or I'm in a newly poured slab in a new house. There's cracking. Totally normal. So it's called shrinkage cracking. When that concrete dries out and the water evaporates, like the concrete has to go somewhere, and it just develops cracks. Now, when it becomes a problem is when it's called differential slab cracks, and when one side of that crack will actually raise up higher, or really it's one side of the slab lowering and settling. That's when it's a problem. That's when your foundation is actually sinking, and that's when you should probably have a foundation contractor come in, lift that slab, and stabilize it.
Yeah, take care of it.
But yeah, I always tell everybody, if you took all of the flooring and you pulled it out of every house in America, you would not see one slab without at least hairline cracks throughout it.
For sure. Yeah, that's just how it works, right? It's got to dry and it settles up. Yeah.
Yep.
So this one's kind of more of something that real estate agents deal with, but I just wanted to hear your side of it in terms of having it's almost like a meme or a funny joke amongst realtors where you have the buyer's dad show up at the inspection.
Oh yeah.
And of course they know more than the inspector does or the realtor does about their job, right? So I just want to know, do you have any horror stories regarding, a buyer's dad?
Oh gosh, man, the number of buyer's dads that have come through that know way more than us or our team.
They were a GC, don't worry.
In a past, in a previous career, right? They used to be a GC or an electrician or whatever. All the time. We're providing a service, we have to handle everybody with grace and professionalism. So we take the time to listen to them. And, if there's differing opinions, then, we handle it politely and professionally and just say, hey, this is our opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. Treat them just like any other human being.
Any other person.
But it happens all the time. And, it's funny. We have an internal group chat amongst our company, and sometimes somebody will be like, SOS, I need help. I'm getting bombarded with the 13 family members are all here at the inspection, and this guy keeps telling me something or other, like, can somebody come and save me, right? So either like me or like Devin, our manager, will come and, you know, play distraction and, you know, talk to the family or do that while the inspector can actually do their job. So
that's also one thing too, is like, I think maybe it's more common with first-time home buyers, is like when they're with the inspector, they're on you. You know what I mean? They're following you around the whole entire house, and like that, they want to know, right? And that's it. Like, they just want to know what's going on. And they want to have a full picture of that. But at the same time, then you have 11 family members in there. Oh, get this guy to take a look at this over here. Right. And then it's exactly what you said. It's that alligator in the attic. It's that distraction. You know, it's something that takes you away off of your process and your game. For sure. Right? So it's a lot of times I tell them, like, hey, he's going to talk to you at the end. You know, he's not going to just walk away. You know, like, he's going to get his job done, find everything. And then if you're not here, he'll call you, you know?
And thank you for that. Cause like a lot of realtors don't provide that advice, you know, and that suggestions to their buyer. And then sometimes, like you said, we're there for 3 hours and we're just getting peppered with question, or, hey, what do you think about this? Or come over here and look at this. And we're like, you know, we'll be there in like 30 minutes, but right now we're in this room and we're checking this area. So we do have like a very defined process to where we go through the house, and it, you know, it reduces our chances of missing something drastically. But yeah, if we're getting pulled away and, you know, come look at this, then it does increase our risk for missing something. But kind of like I said, like at the end of the day, I mean, we're providing a service. Somebody's spending $400, $500, $600 for our time and our expertise. You know, we try to provide the best possible service that we can. And if somebody has questions, you know, we go and take the time to listen to them and talk with them, and, you know, and then hopefully go back to the exact same spot that we were inspecting and not miss a beat. Right.
Yeah. That's the hope, right? But it can be tough. I know.
Yep. But no, like yourself, like if you're giving that client that advice that, hey, let them do their job 2-3 hours, and then, you know, either we'll come towards the end of the inspection. That's the best. That's what we prefer the most, is when we can really knock out, you know, most of that inspection. Now we always do a 15-20 minute walkthrough at the very end, go through any major findings, you know, point out, you know, the shutoffs of the house, answer any questions, and just take the time to do that. So, Well,
Kurt, I got to say, this has been pretty awesome, and I appreciate you being here with us today. And well, actually, I'm with you. I'm in your office. So,
HouseScan headquarters.
Yeah, HouseScan HQ.
Yep.
But I appreciate you doing this today. It's been awesome. If people want to use your services, I know they can find you on social media, right? So that was at HouseScanFL, right?
And then our website would be housescanfl.com. So very similar.
Easy.
And then if somebody needs to schedule an inspection, you can hop on the website. You can schedule it any hour of the day. It's always available, you know, for somebody to schedule super easily. It takes about 2 minutes to get something set up and on our calendar. But, you know, if you have questions or you need to talk to somebody, we've got 3 girls in the office at all times that can answer any question about home inspections anytime. So pretty much 24/7 availability. Call us anytime. And that number is 904-758-9225.
Okay. So once again, let's do the number and then the Instagram handle to get at you again. Let's roll that out for people.
So phone number is 904-758-9225. Website is housescanfl.com. Instagram handle is housescanfl.com.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, housescanfl.
Housescanfl.com. Beautiful. Awesome, Kurt. Well, hey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And guys, thank you so much for tuning in here today. If you do have any questions for Kurt, if you have any questions for me, make sure you drop them in the comments below or reach out directly. Till next time, guys, have a good one.